Hey guys, welcome again to the Maths Club. If you are just joining us, you're welcome. I want to encourage everybody to subscribe to the channel if you have not. Like our videos. If you see a content that you've watched and then you enjoyed, like the video. If you have any question, if you have any contribution, if there was any mistake anywhere, I'm a human being. I'm as vulnerable to mistakes as anyone else is. Comment it in the comment section. I'll respond to all comments. Today we'll be starting a brand new topic called ratios, proportions, and rates. They say ratios like comparing two things, such as ingredients in a recipe or speed and distance. Because you are using both in your class, you go about and start bragging that you can outrun everybody. So bring it to the field. Let's compare our speed. You do some comparison. Let's say, oh, I am 2 times faster than all the guys in the other classes. That's because you'll be able to calculate your time and the other person's time and done some mathematical operation on it, and then you'll be able to discover that, oh, your time is actually 2 times faster than any other person's time. So things like that, you're just comparing. Really, you can think of it as a way to see how things relate to each other. Like I said, how fast you are compared to how fast they are in the other class, and it helps us to understand relationships between different amounts. So for example, you are baking chocolate chip cookies. I think that this is more like an Oyinbo example. If I use the Nigerian example, I would have said maybe you are frying plantain. And then the recipe calls for the following ingredients. It says for flour, take 2 cups. For sugar, take 1 cup. For the chocolate chips, measure 1.5 cups. And then for the butter, measure 1 cup. So you can see that there is a relationship, there's a ratio. Say, oh, this, don't just carry the whole flour and pour it inside. Take 2 cups. The ratio of the flour to the sugar, the flour is 2 cups, sugar is 1 cup. So you can see like 2:1. That means put 2 cups of flour and 1 cup of sugar. 2:1. Let's look at an example that will bring it to life. In this example, it says that if 3 children share 10.5 naira among themselves in the ratio 6, ratio 7, ratio 8, how much is the largest share? If you even look at this ratio, you have 6, 7, 8. Who has the largest ratio in all of this? Definitely the guy with the 8. Let's now see how much exactly would this person actually go home with. To actually solve this question, the first thing I need to know is, what is the total amount? Oh no, we don't have total amount that don't share is 10.5 naira, but when you're looking at the ratio, what is the total ratio? So let's find the total ratio. That would be 6 plus 7 plus 8. 6 plus 7 is 13. 13 plus 8 is 21. So the total of all of this ratio is 21. And because the largest person has a ratio value of 8, so we could just say 8 all over, what is the total? Total is what? 21. So the value 8 all over the sum, which is 6 plus 7 plus 8 was 21, then multiply by the amount that you want to share. This is 10.50. So what did I do? I just took the value of the largest portion, I divided it by the total, and then I multiplied it by the amount that they want to share. So if I press this in my calculator, this will be 8 divided by 21 multiplied by 10.5, and that gave me 4 naira. So out of this 10.5, the guy that will take the largest will actually take 4 naira. On your own, do you want to calculate how much the guy that has the ratio value of 7 will take home? Great, so that will be 3.5 naira. So you will take home 3.5 naira. So it's just very simple mathematical operation. Let's see if actually correct. Great, so you can see 4 naira. The next example says that Appiah and Baker invested 25,500 and 35,500 respectively in a business. They made a profit of 6,200 at the end of the year. 20% of the profits was shared equally between them, while the remaining was shared on the ratio of their investments. Calculate Appiah's share of the profits. I know what you're thinking, this is actually a big jump from the example 1 to the example 2, but trust me, it is also very easy. Let's solve it together. So it says that Appiah and Baker invested 25,500 and 35,500 respectively. So I could just replace Appiah with A and say A 25,500, and Baker, which is B, she invested 35,500. You know, they say something about the profits, which is 6,200. So if the profits here is 6,200 naira, if 20% of the profits was shared equally between them, so let's say what is 20%? The equal profit share. that will be 20%, 20 over 100 multiplied by 6,200. Remember, 20 over the full amount is 100%, right? So that will be 20 over 100 multiplied by the amount that they're sharing, which is 20 divided by 100 times 6,200. If you press that in your calculator, you see that they shared 1,240. Like, that was the amount that they actually shared equally. So each person would take how much? Great, that will be 1,240. You divide this value by 2. So if I divide this by 2, that will give me 620 naira. So each of them took 720 naira from this 20%. It now says that while the remaining, what is the remaining? So how much is remaining? Let's take it slowly. These are actually answer questions. I take it small after I read the whole thing. So we add 6,200 minus 1,240. So let's press that in our calculators, and that will give you 4,960. So the remaining money was 4,960. So this is the first part. Let me circle this guy. It now says that the remaining was shared on the ratio of their investments. Calculate Appiah's share of the profits. So what was the total amount of investments first? That would be 25,500 plus 35,500. If you press that on your calculator, what would that give you? That will give you 61,000. So that means that the total investment is 61,000 naira. That's fair. Now, if I want to find out how much is Appiah's share, you know, they said that remaining 4,960 naira was divided based on the ratio of what they invested. How much did Appiah invest? Appiah invested 5,500 out of this total 61,100. You agree with me that Appiah's share will be equal to this one first, because you know they shared that 1,240 equally. That would be 620 plus a share in this particular investment was 25,500. So that would be 25,500 divided by what was total investment? Total investment was 61,000. I will multiply by the remainder, which is 4,960 naira. If you are confused, no problem. I will recap everything that we've done. So this will be 620 plus, let's break this down. That will be 25,500 divided by 61,000, then multiplied by 4,960. So by the time I do that, I had 2,073 naira 0.44 kobo. So if I had this to 620, what would that give me? That would give me 2,693 naira 0.44. But how did we get this? We were told that this guy donated 25,000 towards the business. This guy also brought in 35,500. So he made a total of how much? 61,000. I should have maybe calculated it somewhere at the top here, but that's fine. But the business now made a profit of 6,200. They now said 20% of that profit was shared equally. You can see how we found that 20%. 20% is just 20 over 100. Remember, in the previous question, when we were talking about share, we had to add all the guys and say 6 plus 7 plus 8, we had 15. Then we now said 8 over 15. Now, if I have 20% as the profit share that is going to be split equally, 20% over what's the total amount of percent that we can always have? If you say 100% of something, that means the entire value of that thing, yeah? So 20 over 100 multiplied by what profit are they about to share? 6,200. So we had 1,240. So we now said out of this, each person is going to take 620 naira because it is split equally. Then I said the remainder. What was the remainder at this point? The total, which was 6,200 minus the amount that had already been shared, which is minus 1,240. So we had 4,960. Now told us that each person's share, like the extra that the person will take out, apart from this 120, the extra that the person will take is dependent on the percentage that the person, or the ratio of what the person brought in. Remember, Appiah is our point of focus. We're in the Appiah already at 620 plus what extra will she have? If you look at the question, she brought in 25,500. Remember, the extra that she will have will be based on the ratio of the investments. So that's why we said 25,500 over what was the total amount of investments? We add 61,000 because we added both of them together. So we now say 6,500 all over 61,000 multiplied by, it can no longer be the 6,200 because we've already taken a portion out of it. Remember, they said the remaining was shared on the ratio of their investment. The remaining. So that's why we had to do times 4,960, which was the remaining, because we've already taken out the 1,240 from 6,200. So by the time we now simplify this guy, we had 2,693 naira 0.44. And that's basically it. Let's see if we're correct. 2,693 naira 0.44. Well done. Next example says that if A ratio B is equal to 4 ratio 9 and B ratio C is equal to 3 ratio 5, we should now find A ratio B ratio C. Let's solve this together. Look at something. I could also say this like saying, when you see ratio like this, it's like also saying A over B, same thing, is equal to 4 over 9. Then we now say B over C is equal to 3 over 5. So the value corresponding to B is 9. The value corresponding to B is 3 in these two different tables. Can I make both of them be the same thing? Yes. Remember, this B over C, if I want to make it 9, I have to multiply it by, and you have to use multiplication. I said something that's addition. There was a video that I said that addition will not work. So if I wanted to make this equal to 9, I would say I can multiply this by 3. But whatever I do to the numerator, I must do to the denominator. So I also multiply this by 3 too. Because this will give me 9 over 15. 9 over 15 is I'm saying 3 over 5. If I said 3 plus 6, that will give me 9. I said 5 plus 6, that will be 9 over 11. 9 over 11 and 9 over 15, that is the same thing. No, that's why addition cannot work. You have to use multiplication. So now I know that my A over B is equal to 4 over 9 and my B over C is equal to 9 over 15. The corresponding value of, or the corresponding ratio of B is 9. Corresponding ratio of B is 9. Same thing. I can now say A ratio B ratio C. Since the thing that is joining both of them have the same value, I will just say 4 ratio 9, then ratio what? 15. So whenever I solve this kind of question like this, make sure that whatever is common in both of them is the same value. If it's not the same value, you can multiply to make sure it's the same value. After you multiply, you just say A ratio B ratio C is just 4 ratio 9 ratio 15. And that is the answer for this kind of question. Let's see if we're correct. 4 ratio 9 ratio 15. Well done. This example says that Mr. Tony and his wife used 6,000 naira on the business. The business was valued and sold for 18,000. When a VAT of 3% was removed, the remaining gain was shared in ratio 2 to 3 between Mr. Tony and his wife respectively. By what amount is Mr. Tony's wife's gain higher than that of her husband? And so whenever I see questions like this, don't be carried away by the entire length. It can seem very confusing, but you have to break it down in small bits. Let's solve it together. We know that the capital that was brought into the business, capital is the investment, initial investments, was 6,000 naira. They now said the business was sold for 18,000, so the selling price is 18,000 naira. So you agree that there was a profit. Profits here is going to just be the difference, which is the selling price minus the capital, and that would be 18,000 minus 6,000. By the time you subtract this guy, this will give you 12,000 naira. So 12,000 was the profit. Now says when a VAT of 3% was removed, so we have to calculate the VAT. The VAT 3%, of course, that would be 3% out of the entire amount, which was the profit. So that would be 100 times 12,000. By the time I do this, will be 360 naira. VAT was 360 naira. Now it now says that when a VAT of 3% was removed, the remaining gain was shared in 2 to 3, right? That was the ratio. So what was the remaining value? Remaining profits would be the profits minus the VAT. So if you're solving this in your school exam or WAEC exam, you have to put all these formulas there and be very, very explicit as possible. So that would be 12,000 minus 360. So by the time you take 360 from 12,000, what would that give you? So I pressed on my calculator and that gave me 11,640 naira. So this is the remaining profits. The question says that the remaining gain was shared in the ratio 2 to 3 respectively. By what amount is Mr. Tony's wife gain higher than that of her husband? If the ratio was 2 to 3, and 2 is for Mr. Tony and 3 was for his wife. If I look at this, this is the ratio that was provided. So because I want to find the ratio, I could find the amount that this 2% represent. That would be 2 over 5 times this 11,640. Abi, I could find the value that this 3 also represent, which is will be 3 over 5 times 11,640. Then I'll now find the difference between both of them. Let's do that. Mr. Tony's share, that will be 2 all over. The addition of this guy is, so 2 plus 3 will give me 5. So that will be 2 over 5 times 11,640. And then his wife's share, that will be 3 over 5 times 11,640. Let's solve this together. So that will be 2 divided by 5 times 11,640. And that gave me 4,640 656 naira. And this other guy will give me what? 6,984 naira. So we cannot find the difference. I say difference is equal to 6,984 minus 4,656. If you press on your calculator, so the value is actually 2,328. This is actually a very long method. There's a shortcut that we can do. If this person is ratio 2 and ratio 2, what's the difference between the ratio? The difference is, this is an alternative method. Our ratio is 2:3. So by the time I find this value of 2 ratio, I find the value of 3 ratio. I mean, that is actually a longer method. I could just say the difference in ratio. The difference in ratio also compute at the end of this, the difference in the amounts. So difference in ratio, this will be 3 minus 2, and that will be equal to 1. So this difference in ratio, I can now find what this 1 will represent. I can say the difference is now be equal to 1 over the sum of both of them, which is 2 plus 3 multiplied by how much are we trying to split? This is 11,640. If I say 1 over 2 plus 3 is 5, multiply this by 11,640. This will give me 2,328. You can see that it's the same answer, but different approach. If you find that approach easier to understand, no problem. So by the end of the day, we know that Mr. Tony's wife's gain was 2,328 naira, higher than that of her husband, and we were able to show that using 2 different methods. Let's see if our answer is correct. Great, 2,328 naira. The next example says that the sum of $2,400 is shared between Nelson, Neil, and Amara. If Nelson received $600 and the remaining amount is shared between Neil and Amara in the ratio 4:5 respectively, how much does Amara receive? I want to actually pause this video and try this particular example out yourself. Welcome back. Let's solve it together. So the total amount was 2,400 and Nelson's share is $600. Then I said the remaining amount. So what will be that remaining amount? The remaining amount should be the initial amount, which was the total amount, minus Nelson's share, right? So let me just say Nelson's share. So that will be 2,400 minus 600. If you do that in your calculator, that will give you what? $1,800. It now says that remaining amount is shared between Neil and Amara in the ratio 4:5. How much is Amara's share? So this will be total ratio is going to be 4 plus 5, and that will give you 9. Amara's share would be equal to 5. You know, if you look at this, the 4 represents Neil, 5 represents Amara, so that will be 5 over 9 multiplied by 1,800. So 9 here 1, 9 here 200. So 200 times 5 would give you what? 1,000. So Amara's share is actually $1,000. And if you got $1,000, well done to you. Let's see if you're correct. Great, $1,000. The next question says that if 4 values RSTU are in the ratio 3, 4, 5, 6, find the value of 8R minus 4U all over 7S plus 3T. Let's solve this one together. If you're given this type of question, you notice that something is missing. We're not giving like a total amount. Unlike before, we were giving something like maybe a profit that was shared in ratio 2, ratio 3, but we're not giving like an end result. We're just told that 4 numbers are in the ratio 3, 4, 5, and 6. What the numbers could be in the ratio 3, 4, 5, and 6? Numbers like 6, 8, 10, 12. You can see 6, 8, 10, 12 is actually in the ratio 3, 4, 5, and 6. So whenever you see ratios like this, don't assume that the value is actually 3. It could be 6, 8, 10, and 12 that they now said, oh, because 2 can still go in all of them, 9 divided by 2. It could be 9, 12, 15, 18. This could be the real numbers. So whenever you see numbers like this, always take it like as if you're saying 3x, ratio 4x, ratio 5x, ratio 6x, because you don't know what the exact numbers are. This is something that you need to actually note when you're dealing with ratio. Let's say I want to say 4 ratio 8. You know, I said 4 ratio 8 is my saying 4 over 8, right? I could also say this equals to 1 over 2. You know that 4 ratio 8 is also equal to 1 ratio 2 because 4 is common in both of them. So imagine if I said the ratio of something is 1 ratio 2, but the real breakdown of the thing was actually 4:8. You can tell it's actually a problem. So whenever you see this kind of ratios like this and you're not given an end game, just take it as 3x, 4x, 5x, and 6x. Take it like that. So yeah, we know that our R here is equal to 3x, our S is equal to 4x, our T is equal to 5x, and then our U is equal to 6x. So let's substitute. 8 times 3x minus 4 times 6x all over 7 times our S is 4x, so that will be 7 times 4x plus our T is 5x, that will be 3 times 5x. So 8 times 3x is 24x minus 4 times 6 is 24x all over 7 times 4 is 28x plus 3 times 5 is 15x. So we know that 24x minus 24x will give us 0. But if I didn't want to do that first, I could factor out x from the top and factor out x from the bottom. So that would be x open brackets 24 minus 24 all over x open brackets 28 plus 15. Then I could not cancel out. So if you are given another question that the top will not equate to 0, this is what you should do. So I mean, some other textbooks will just put in the 3, 4, 5, 6 like that as the RSTU. But I'm just saying, just show a bit of understanding that you know that whenever you see values 3, 4, 5, 6, does not mean the exact value that was there is actually 3, 4, 5. It could be any multiple of these guys. Multiple of 2, 3, 4, 5. So we know that 24 minus 24 is 0. So this will be 0 all over what? 28 plus 15, that will give you 43. And this will give you what? 0. So at the end of the day, this particular guy resolved to 0. Let's see if actually correct. Great. This question says that the exchange rate between the US dollar and the euro is 1 to 0.85. If you exchange $500 to euros, calculate the amount in euros. I want to actually pause the video and try this out yourself. Welcome back. Let's solve it together. So we're told that the exchange rate between the US dollars and euros is 1 to 0.85. So I could just say dollar to euros is 1 over 0.85. I told you whenever you see ratio like this, you can also say 1 over. Now, that means that for every $1 that I exchange, I would have 0.85. So if it was like Naira, I think Naira is like 1 to 1,240 Naira. The ratio of Naira to dollar is 1 to 1,240. That means for every $1 that you receive is equivalent to 1,240 Naira. Now, it's not telling us that if I exchange $500 to euros, what will be the amount in euros? So I could just say this is also equal to, the dollar amount is 500, so 500. So what will be the corresponding euros? I could just, this is x. So this is naturally not equals, this is actually like something like an arrow to show that I'm actually expressing d over e. So for every $1 I receive, it is equivalent to 0.85 euros. Now I'm not receiving $500. How much will be the equivalent in euros? To actually solve this type of question, you can just cross multiply. If this is the first time I'm saying this, that's fine. So when I cross multiply, 1 will multiply x, that will be 1 times x is equal to 0.85 multiply 500. That will be 0.85 times 500. That will give you 425. And then our x, 1 times x is x. So that means that $500 is 425 euros. I think the symbol for euros is E, if I'm correct. This is basically simple exchange rates involving ratio. Let's see if our answer is correct. 425 euros. Great. And the last question about this says that a train travels from city X to city Y at an average speed of 90 km per hour. If the distance between the two cities is 270 kilometers, calculate the time it takes for the train to reach city Y. It's just a modification of what we just treated in the previous example. We're told that the average speed is 90 km per hour. So that means that it takes the guy 90 kilometers in 1 hour. So if he's driving, he drives 90 kilometers in 1 hour. And I'm not saying if this is the speed that you're taking, no. If I'm going a distance of 270 kilometers, how much time will it take me? So that will be all over x or x hour. We don't know what it will be. I think what I should have done in this previous question, instead of me saying d over e, I should have just said maybe $1 to euro 0.85 is equal to $500 all over euro x, something like that, instead of saying d over e, but that's just representation. Back to this. The next thing that we're going to do is to do what? Great, to cross multiply. So if I cross multiply, that will be 90 times x will now be equal to 270 times 1. 90 times x is 90x. 270 times 1 is 270. To make x stand, I divide both sides by 90. And when I do that, you will see that this will give me 3. 90 into 270 is 3. So our x is equal to 3 hours. It takes this train 3 hours to actually cover that distance of 270 kilometers. So this is just a very small example. And the reason why I actually use the examples to actually talk about this particular thing is that to actually talk about the theory of it is very boring. Why don't we go inside and solve questions? Tough questions, easy questions that will be able to open your mind to what ratio is all about. In the next video, we're going to be looking at WAEC questions. I know in this particular video, we looked at WAEC questions. All the questions are actually maybe WAEC or NECO or something like that. But in the next video, we're going to look at the WAEC past question in the last 10 years that cover ratio. I want you to actually go to any textbook. I recommend you general mathematics. I recommend Hidden Facts in Mathematics. These are good textbooks. You can go there and look at more examples in ratio and try your hands on it. If you have any questions, anyone that is challenging, you can always buzz me in the comment section. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye for now.